Heyo, it's OmniDog. How is it going, everybody? I'm happy to be here because I'm here to talk about comic strips. And I don't get the chance to talk about comic strips very often because mostly I'm talking about collected editions of comic books. But I grew up loving comic strips before I even loved comic books. And the first comic books were just collections of comic strips back in the early 30s, something like that. So as a kid, I grew up like everybody my age, loving reading comic strips in the newspaper. And as I grew older, I would glance at the front page and then just go right to sports and right to the comics. And after you read comics long enough, you get your favorites. You get your comfort ones, the ones that make you happiest, the ones you know you can always count on. You can count on them to be funny, well drawn, well written, serious, dramatic, whatever you like about a comic strip. And this is comic strip in a thing called a newspaper, which was a physical thing we got back in the day, but now you get them digitally online and you can still read your comic strip in the newspaper. I read the back of the style section in the Washington Post, and that's where I get my comic strip from. But you develop your favorites, over the years, Peanuts or Calvin and Hobbes or Mary Worth or whatever. I remember, famous ones like Lil Abner, Pogo and stuff. But in the late 70s, early 80s, I started noticing a strip called For Better or For Worse. And as you can see, I highlighted a lot of this book. And then as I started following it, it became one of my go-tos, one of my comforts, because I always felt I could rely on it to either make me, the point of a comic strip, I think, is, depending on the writer, they either want to make you laugh, make you think, maybe both, make your day better. So they have a big job. You take somebody like Charles Schulz, and he wrote 50 straight years, and 50 straight years, 7 days a week, he had something new in there. And if a strip runs long enough, you're going to see that person's personal philosophy maybe come out in life, depending on how it's structured. Now, I don't know that you're going to see personal philosophy of Bill Watterson come out in Calvin and Hobbes, other than to enjoy your imagination. But For Better or For Worse became one of my go-tos, my comforts, probably in the mid-80s and well through the 90s till 2008, when she changed it and sort of went back and did remixes of them, sort of. But this is the Complete Library, 1993 through 1996. And I highlighted so many of them. I probably can't talk about every single one. But first of all, let's talk about the design of this book. Because with a hardcover book, sometimes the binding on these library books, on these library editions of comic strips, can be sort of sketchy. But this thing is absolutely beautiful. It is bound really well. Very well. The color on the Sunday strips, the color is done very well. It's just the consummate pro. The color is done really well. Maybe it's redone for this. I don't know. I love seeing the shading in the background here that fades away as it goes up, the gradation. Um, I haven't read anything about whether or not the color's been redone, but the color looks beautiful, and these black and white reproductions are really sharp and crisp, and you get a real sense of Lynn Johnston's talent as an artist. I think it's really hard to churn out a daily strip, writing it and drawing it, as well as she did, because these are strips. Sometimes there would be story arcs, sometimes there would be single four-panel comics. But I think it would be hard to be a cartoonist and have a strip, because not only are you having to obviously come up with an idea, but you're having to put it into motion and in an appealing format that grabs the reader's attention. And these, I loved these as I grew older. If I started really liking it in the 80s, I would have been in my early 20s, and then in the 90s, I would have been in my 30s. So one of the interesting things about the Patterson family is Lynn Johnston, the cartoonist, has them age. As the years go by, the parents and the children and the animals all age in real time. So when you read a book that's this thick, you're going to notice that, say, Michael, the son, in this volume, he's going off to college or university. Lynn Johnston lives in Canada, and so this is about life in Canada, but it translates perfectly to the United States, which is where I'm from, and that's my only comparison. So I don't know how it compares to anywhere else, but the family ages. April here, I believe, was an oops, because Michael and Elizabeth were already beating on each other and tearing up the house as toddlers, and April is quite a bit younger than those two. But then we've got Ellie, and then we've got John, and my nephew is named Michael Patterson, and so my sister always had, for better or for worse, whenever his full name was mentioned, up on her refrigerator. So that's how I knew his name so well. But it was a brilliant comic, I thought, because you could have it. It was as I said, it was a comfort. It was one of those strips that you could count on. You looked forward to it because it wasn't going to disappoint you, no matter what the subject matter was. And it dealt with real subject matter. The book before this dealt with Lawrence coming out, with his being gay. That was one of Michael's best friends. This was back in the early 90s. I can only imagine the kind of mail she got. This is before the internet. I think that was obviously a brave thing for her to do, but it was also an important thing to do. It was probably time for one of her characters to relate to a percentage of the population. And so the strips can be serious, they can be funny, they can be corny puns, they can be bad puns, they can be good puns. There can be a lesson buried in there if you want, or you can just read it for what it is. A lot of times I found these to be always heartwarming and funny, and still, if you wanted to, you could always find a lesson in there somewhere. Not in every strip, because that's not fun, but in maybe an arc, a whole 2-week arc, there'd be a lesson. Slow down and enjoy your life and relax. Whatever the theme was, it was always never in your face. If you wanted to just read it and enjoy it and move on with your life, you could. If you wanted to really get into it and just say, yeah, she's really saying something here, you could get into it. One of my favorite strips is this one here, and it happened in 1994 September. Lynn Johnston also has, now that I want to see one, I won't be able to find one. She has little notes here that she writes that are commentary, and these are all really interesting comments that she puts down, because she's doing it 20 years later, or some cases, if the volume's from 1979, she's doing it 30 years later. So this particular strip stuck with me, and I remembered it when it happened, and I remembered it when I read this, because I don't know if Lynn Johnston meant to send out such an important lesson, or if I just took it as an important lesson, but it stuck with me, and it always stuck with me, and it's this one right here, and I don't know if I can read it backwards. I can't. So right here, it's this one, which I'll hold here, because Elizabeth's gotten a bad haircut. And her dad, John, is telling her about all the bad things that are going on in the world, putting in perspective for her, saying, and you have problem hair. And she goes, oh. So, I don't know, the problem hair thing has always stuck with me, that if I have a bad hair day, there's so many other things going on in the world that, good, bad, or irregular, I am such a tiny little part of it, and my bad hair day doesn't mean a thing to anybody but me. And get over yourself, and anything you want to read past that, get over yourself, go out there, make a difference. Stop. I think it's a basic lesson. Stop moping, hit yourself up by your bootstraps, and go out there and live your life. But that one always made a real impact on me, because she's saying, Dad, you just don't understand. This haircut is totally destroying my life. Why are you so unsympathetic? Well, Liz, at this moment, refugees are dying, people are being shot, children are missing, families are homeless, and you have problem hair. So that's a lesson for all of us, especially me. So do you want to have fun? All my channel's always about is having fun reading comics. That's what they're for. If they're controversial, if they touch on things that are real life, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. This is about real life. And it's about Canadian real life, but as far as I can only say from an American's perspective, that it made complete sense to me, because teenagers and adults have the same exact problems and deal with the exact same issues here in America. And a lot of them are laugh out loud funny. A lot of them make you think. A lot of them make you want to hug your loved ones. And this was one of my comforts that I just looked forward to every day. And these books are really a gift from the Library of American Comics, which is distributed by IDW. And you can tell that a lot of love went into the making of these books, just with how crisp the reproduction is. I would love to know what she used to draw, what kind of paper she used, if she used pen, brush and ink, what she used to to draw on these things. I can see Zipatone, that old-fashioned Zipatone in the back there, right up here with April. That's old-fashioned Zipatone, I remember from my own cartooning days, just having fun. I highly recommend this. For Better or For Worse is about a family growing up, growing old together. The kids grow up, have friends, have fights, have fun. And, well, I'm not spoiling anything because it already happened. I mean, back in '93. But this is Farley. And I remember April falls into a river. And Farley jumps in after her and rescues her. And he ends up dying. And first of all, this is a cartoon dog, okay? I cried. I cried back then, and I cried when I read it again. This is how much I got attached to this cartoon family. They have lives and thoughts, and it was a cartoon dog, and I still cried. But Lynn Johnston has a way of writing that makes you care about her characters. And that's what we want. When we read comics, we want to care about the characters. We want to have a vested interest in the characters. We want to be interested enough in them to find them interesting and follow them. And that's what the Pattersons are, going through all kinds of things in their lives, going through all kinds of trials and tribulations and fun and frivolity and just life in general. So I highly recommend this, Volume 5, The Complete Library. And I look forward to Volume 6. I'm having a problem finding Volume 3, which is apparently out of print, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to pound the pavement now that I've had my second shot. I can go out and start looking for books again. But just get this book and relax, and you can read it in chunks, read it a page a day, read it however you want it. But your life will be better, not worse. Ha! For better or for worse when you read this book. It is absolute fun with a warmth that is missing from a lot of things today. And real ability to draw, which can be missing from a lot of strips today too. So great writing, great art, great characters. 5 out of 5 stars, 10 out of 10 fingers holding up, A+, whatever you want to give it. OmniDog says you guys really need to go out there and get, For Better or For Worse, The Complete Library. If you've never read it before, you can start here and you'll know these characters very well pretty quickly. So until I talk to you again, thank you for tuning in and watching. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all my fans and the viewers that watch. Please hit the like button and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment. I answer all comments. Peace and love. Peace and love. Thank you so much.